We are living in an era of seismic challenges. Our global food system faces never-before-seen stresses, from the climate crisis, population growth, and fractured supply chains. But might these shocks to our system actually be a catalyst for positive change? This is just so incredible. I'm on a journey to witness for myself. Oh, look at this! How farmers, scientists, and innovators are radically reimagining how we grow our food and produce it. I feel like I'm in a space station and super perfect lettuce has just magically appeared from the heavens. It's a quest to meet the greatest challenges that are facing humanity.
We have to wake up and we have to feed the world. That's a big job.
And create a new and better food future. In this episode, food as medicine.
Just take a bite.
Okay. Oh, good. How thinking about food in a different way.
This biofortification innovation is a no-brainer. And we need to make sure that we can get it to as many communities as possible.
Could be the key to creating a healthier, wealthier world. This could transform, really, the health of whole civilizations. Humanity is facing a health crisis, and food is at the heart of the problem. Millions of people don't have enough to eat, while elsewhere, whole communities are blighted by poor quality food and obesity. But I want to know whether, if we change the way we think about food, we can harness its power to nourish a healthier human race.
Hi, James.
Hi there, Gunhild. Thank you so much for joining us. Gunhild Stordalen is a medical doctor and founder of EAT, a not-for-profit foundation dedicated to creating a fair and healthy global food system through sound science, disruption, and partnerships.
There is a saying that the food you eat can either be the safest, most powerful medicine or the slowest form of poison. Today, unfortunately, our diets are more a slow form of poison. The global consequences of poor diets are disastrous. We have more than 800 million people still going hungry to bed. And then on the other hand, you have overweight and obesity now affecting more than 2 billion people, 30% of the population. And this is costing, obviously, immense mind-boggling costs to people, but also to our economies.
If we as a society were to think about food as medicine, how do you think that would change how we grow, process, distribute, and consume it?
Well, food as medicine is a very, very powerful concept. And it should really be seen as medicine, not only for people, but for our planet. It is possible to feed everyone and do it sustainably, but it will require a radical transformation of current food systems, meaning we need to shift the way we produce food to much more regenerative, nature-positive production methods.
We know that if people eat well, there is less strain on healthcare systems. Kids miss less school, and it results in higher economic productivity. But getting the right food to the right people in the right amounts is a major challenge, not just in rural areas, but also in the world's great metropolises.
The inequality in a city like São Paulo is enormous. São Paulo has more than 1,700 favelas. Many of these favelas are considered food deserts. That means they are places where access to grocery stores and fresh food, health food is scarce or impossible.
UNICEF have reported that around the world, at least 1 in 3 children under 5 is either undernourished or overweight. Almost 2 in 3 children between 6 months and 2 years of age are not fed food that supports their rapidly growing bodies and brains. In Brazil, Andre and the Campo Favela project have come up with an innovative solution.
Food should be the first and most important medicine for population, and especially for these communities.
Reacting to supply problems made worse by the coronavirus pandemic, the project has created a new supply chain for fresh fruit and vegetables by connecting local smallholder farmers direct to favela communities. The system has now been rolled out to 19 cities in 10 Brazilian states. And their objective is to find a sustainable business model that brings fresh food to the urban areas post-pandemic.
We need to consider in supply chain management not only delivery time, cost, and efficiency KPIs, but we have to include well-being KPIs, such as health, access, inequality reduction, and happiness. I do not believe that there is a single or a unique solution to this problem, but a set of solutions that come from the government, from private companies, and also from the communities themselves.
One of the major obstacles in getting fresh, healthy food into food deserts is perishability, with retailers tending to favor ultra-processed products with a longer shelf life that are high in calories but low in nutrients. So I want to find out if ultra-processed really has to always mean ultra-unhealthy. Celebrated biochemical engineer and former Harvard University professor David Edwards has gone so far as to invent a new kind of food, inspired by nature and backed by some of the world's leading universities, that reminds me of something from a sci-fi film. It's called food berries, and it's an idea that could be used for rapid nutrient correction in poor diets.
Basically, you take any plant-based food and you contain it in a skin, like a grape skin. The benefit for the consumer is that it's a finger food, it's a snack, it's lovely, but it's also super nutritious.
What are your fruit skins made out of?
Yeah, we use molecules that come from mushrooms and from algae.
So they're natural ingredients,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
being combined together in a different way.
Exactly, and at the right proportion, and then they become a really interesting matrix for nutrition and for iron, for example, and so they're a really interesting delivery system.
I'm desperately wanting to try some.
Yeah, so let's maybe start with the fruit berry, and so this is
Okay.
a pineapple mango.
Instantly,
and,
that's the smell, like tropical fruit flavor.
Yeah.
So they're soft,
Yep.
is the first thing you
Yep.
notice,
Yep.
and they're slightly tacky,
Yep.
but not too much. It's exactly like holding a cherry.
Just take a bite
Okay,
like that.
do you do a cross section?
Yeah.
Oh, good. What's really, sorry, my
No,
botany
please.
brain is going off on one. Because it feels so much like a fruit, and it even has the texture of a fruit inside. I was expecting maybe like a chewy marzipan consistency.
Yeah.
It actually has the texture of fruit as well.
Yeah.
But David's food berries are more than just tasty snacks. These berries have a serious purpose, with a huge potential for targeting and delivering a tailored cocktail of vital micro and macronutrients.
Is this inspired by that kind of 1960s idea of the future, you know, flying cars and a meal and a pill? Is that where it came
No,
from?
actually, no, that's funny. No, actually, it came from my experience in Africa. I started a not-for-profit in Africa called Medicine in Need. I became committed to the idea that we should take the science and technology that we've so developed in the healthcare system and bring it to people through food.
Using the food berries formula, David and his team are working with the Sierra Leone government to create a nutrient-rich cassava grape designed to help combat widespread malnutrition.
What we're doing is we're putting soluble iron with vitamin C. Now, vitamin C turns out to be an enhancer for iron absorption. Iron doesn't absorb very well in the gut. And normally you can't put iron in food form because it oxidizes in water. But because of the skins, we can put both the iron and the vitamin C, and it's stable.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
What I see in front of me is an incredibly convincing artificial fruit. What's the benefit of having this artificially created fruit over a fruit that's come directly off a tree?
One is nutrition density, so we can increase the nutrition content in terms of vitamins, and also accessibility and usability, really.
David's ideas demonstrate how the power of food science means the only limit to what we can create is our imagination. Next, I want to know how the staple crops that millions rely on can be used to battle what's known as hidden hunger, and the experiments with plant genetics that could revolutionize our diets. We know that when people don't get enough food, or when they eat low-quality food, it has a profound effect on their health, holds back their development, and puts a strain on the world's healthcare systems. So I'm exploring how we can harness the power of good food as medicine. I've seen how rethinking supply chains can help tackle food deserts, and how food science is allowing us to invent brand new foods fortified with nutrients. But now I want to find out how our most important crops could be tailored to fight malnutrition. In Africa, nearly 48% of the continent's population relies on cereals and root staples that are not sufficiently dense in vital micronutrients. The result is a problem known as hidden hunger, where what food there is available is lacking in the necessary vitamins and minerals.
Kenya is one of the countries in Africa that is affected by this problem of hidden hunger. It is estimated that more than 21% of women in Kenya suffer from iron deficiency. It is also estimated that about 36% of pregnant women suffer from iron deficiency, and it's even worse with children.
But the Harvest Plus project is attempting to fight this hidden hunger using a groundbreaking process known as biofortification. Leading a group of young agricultural researchers back in 1990, founder and former World Food Prize winner Howdy Buis came up with the revolutionary idea that dietary quality was just as important as quantity.
Hey, Howdy.
Good to see you.
Tell me about your work. Why is it so important?
When you look at patterns, the poor eat a lot of food staples, and they don't eat much vegetables, fruits, and animal products, and that's why they're deficient. So the idea I had was, if they're eating these large amounts of food staples day in and day out, let's try to load more of what they need into those food staples. Let's get agriculture to provide the minerals and vitamins that people need. Let's close that gap with the food supply.
Fortifying processed food products has been going on since the first half of the 20th century. We're all familiar with added vitamins in milk or minerals in breakfast cereals, but it costs money to add them, and also comes in products that are often out of reach to the poor. So Howdy had the idea of enriching the crops themselves. Biofortification uses conventional methods of plant breeding to produce crops that are richer in essential micronutrients and are higher yielding.
There has been an argument from some quarters that it would just be much easier to diversify people's diet. What would you say to that?
I think that diversifying the diets is the ultimate solution. We want, the diets that you and I are used to eating, that's what we want to see people eating all over the world. Efforts have to be made in that direction, but there's no one, strategy that's just going to solve the problem. If you're just going to work, if you only are going to work on dietary diversity, it's going to take decades and decades and decades, because basically you've got to raise their incomes so that they can afford the diverse diets.
The idea has since had a global impact. There are now nearly 400 new varieties of 12 biofortified crops, from rice to wheat, maize, bananas, potatoes, and more, being grown in 40 countries, reaching an estimated 10 million farming households.
This biofortification concept, innovation is a no-brainer. Are we done yet? No. Africa still suffers the brunt of this problem of hidden hunger, and we need to make sure that we can get it to as many communities as possible and make sure that we can help significantly mitigate the problem of hidden hunger.
You know, what Howdy's been able to achieve is, to me as a botanist, frankly astonishing, given how slow conventional breeding can be, particularly when you're trying to include multiple traits within a single crop variety. But with new technologies on the horizon, I'm really fascinated to know if we could make this even quicker.
Poverty, inequality, urbanization, and the industrialization of our food system is creating hidden hunger.
Populations can get enough to eat in terms of calories, mainly through things like starches and sugars, but are still lacking vitamins and minerals. And that can mean that some populations can, ironically, have a problem with obesity and nutrient deficiency at the same time.
In countries like Brazil, the consumption of fruits and vegetables has diminished amongst its population by up to 40% in recent years, leading to increasingly deadly levels of obesity, cancer, and heart disease. So I've come to the University of Cranfield to discover how genetically engineering food could provide a fast solution.
Augustine.
Hi, James.
How's it going?
Not bad, thanks.
A man after my own heart with all these weird and wonderful plants here. Can I ask what you're doing?
So we are looking at these wild relatives of tomato, which are non-domesticated species, and we're trying to find ways to make them more productive and more nutritious so they can become crops.
Dr. Agustin Zogon is leading a team of scientists that are using genetic engineering to build a new tomato variety that's packed with the essential vitamins and minerals commonly missing in the diets of those suffering hidden hunger.
When we bred tomatoes, we lost a lot of the really good diversity that these wild relatives had. And now what we're trying to do is recover it.
Selective breeding over millennia has meant that disease resistance, stress tolerance, and importantly, levels of nutritional quality have been lost in the commercial varieties of tomatoes grown today. Using the gene editing process known as CRISPR, the team hope to create a new breed of tomato that has the high yield potential of modern-day tomatoes, but which also carry the essential qualities that have been lost over time.
Okay, so these are conventional tomatoes. Have you edited either of these?
Yes, one of them has been edited, the other not. Do you want to guess which one is which?
Okay, I'm going to guess the one that's absolutely covered in fruit is the one that you're trying to get, right? The edited one?
We managed to improve it, actually. So what you can see here is that this variety of tomato has this type of inflorescence where the fruit set slowly and sequentially.
Yes.
We have introduced an alteration through gene editing that creates a branch where most of the fruit ripen at the same time. So you have more fruit and more concentrated ripening.
So these are two otherwise genetic clones. They are perfect identical twins. And all you've done is change a single gene.
Yes, exactly. So once you identify a gene and you can prove that a certain change will produce a certain outcome in the plant, then you can move to the wild species and you can introduce these traits to transform them into crops.
So this sounds pretty revolutionary to me in terms of actually increasing yield. But one of the problems with increasing yield is it sometimes comes at the expense of nutrition.
Yes, that's correct, James. What's happened in the very improved current varieties of tomato is that higher yield has led to a reduction in the nutritional value. That's why we want to go back to the wild species.
Oh!
So it has been shown that some of these wild species actually have in the fruit higher contents of vitamin C and lycopene. And actually we have shown that through targeted gene editing, changing a single gene, you can increase lycopene content by 5 times in the fruit.
As an antioxidant, lycopene, the red pigment of a tomato, has been linked to reduced incidence of heart disease, a particular problem linked to hidden hunger.
So it sounds like these wild species are really superior in almost every way to our modern tomatoes, except for the fact that they can't produce a decent yield. And if we could just convince them to do that, we'd have a super tomato.
Yes, exactly. That's what we are trying to do. So we are trying to figure out exactly which genes need to be manipulated in these plants to transform them into a really nice and nutritious and productive crop.
I've come across gene editing technology before while making this series, and admittedly, it's a technique that's not without its critics. Currently, regulations surrounding the research and commercial use of gene editing differ from country to country, but the ability for the process to fast-forward conventional breeding techniques could be game-changing.
Okay, so what's the first step?
Well, the first step is to look at the gene sequence and determine exactly what change we want to make in this gene.
So you have the whole genetic code of the entire plant all mapped out on a computer, and you can identify just the little snippet, which is the gene that you're looking to target.
Yes, exactly.
With the native tomato plants successfully gene edited to grow more nutritious and abundant fruits, while still retaining their original qualities, the team harvests the seeds.
Now, where do these seeds go ultimately once they're cleaned up and dried?
So we're shipping them to Brazil, where we will run field trials to grow them and see if they have the agronomic benefit that we expect.
And this is just so much work, though. I mean, it's kind of fun to do at the moment, but this has taken you years, international cooperation, you know, a huge amount of money. Why is this so important? What drives you?
So what we are trying to do here is to create a platform that can be used in the future, not only for tomato, but for other crops that grow in places like Brazil, to help farmers and also for the benefit of consumers, so they can have a more healthy and a more nutritional product.
I mean, this could transform really the health of whole civilizations and some of the poorest people on the planet.
Well, that's what we're aiming for, really.
I think it's this seed right here that's going to do it.
The power to create superfoods through plant breeding is absolutely enormous. And eventually, we'll have an extensive arsenal of highly nutritious food to combat all levels of malnutrition.
Even our most traditional crops, the kind of thing that we've been growing and eating for millennia, are in fact incredibly complex chemical cocktails, sometimes containing hundreds of different compounds, many of which we're only just beginning to understand the properties of. And that means that the potential of food to transform our health is absolutely enormous. And the most fascinating thing is, this journey in many cases has only just begun.